Appleby. I'm the management of Turners here. It's a delight to welcome you for a very special Sunday afternoon. Over the years, I've been at Turner Sims more than 20 years, and Ray has been a constant companion, correspondent in lots of different ways, and some of you may have actually been to some of the concerts we've done here before with him. I think he did his 60th birthday concert. I think he did a farewell concert as well. And Ray and I talked last summer about the idea of he'd love to come back and do a concert. And then he mentioned his 80th birthday. And I said, when's your birthday? He said, the 5th of March. And I said, 5th of March? I said, that's a Sunday. That could be brilliant. But do you want to do a gig on your birthday? Why don't you just have a relaxing birthday and then do a gig at another point? And he says, no, that would be a nice idea. Let's do that. So we're here today, Sunday the 5th of March 2023. It's his 80th birthday today, as many of you will know. But you can't have a birthday and you can't have a concert on a Sunday afternoon without cake. So part of my job this afternoon is to give you instructions for the interval. There is a free slice of cake for everybody, and we have very vigilant ushers to make sure that you don't see another one and go, oh, I had one. So when you go out at the interval, at the appointed moment, you can go and buy your drink, you can go and collect your slice of cake, and we will make sure that the interval runs for as long as we need to make sure that you can have a relaxing Sunday afternoon, because that's the important thing on Sunday afternoons, to not have to be stressed with the rest of the world and just enjoy some fantastic music and enjoy a slice of cake as well. So that's all I need to say. When I did chat to Ray earlier on, we did have a strange conversation about the fact that he said, well, maybe I could talk to you about my 100th in 20 years' time. Which I was probably more concerned about whether I'd be here in 20 years' time, let alone him. But anyway, it's an absolute delight that we could make this afternoon work, particularly in association with Southampton Jazz Club, who are working with us today on this particular event. So thank you to Jane and Kurt from the Jazz Club for coordinating that. Thank you. Yeah. So without further ado, please welcome on stage the birthday boy himself, Ray Dinverno.
Thank you very much. That was Besame Mucho by the female Mexican composer Consuelo Velasquez. And it's a significant piece. I want to tell you about it because I did my 60th concert here 20 years ago. As a performing jazz musician, I would often get to play in jazz clubs and even occasionally jazz festivals. But poor old jazz, it's in such a parlous state. There's fewer and fewer jazz clubs, fewer and fewer festivals. So now I still play regularly, but I play in pubs, in bars, in restaurants, in hotels. In fact, I have a Sunday afternoon trio gig with a grand piano in a very upmarket hotel outside of Yeovil. So I'm not there today, I'm here. So I thought I'd just tell you a little bit about the history of jazz, because jazz has been such the center of my life that I'd like to contextualize this. I have 4 children. They all think I'm really boring. They say, why do you tell a story where one sentence would do and you end up saying 10? And the answer is because I contextualize things, you see. So there's going to be a concert here. We have lots of music, lots of musicians. But I want you just to know a little bit about the significance. It's of interest. I see so many familiar faces in the audience. I'd like to say thank you for coming. Thank you to a few people. Especially, I don't know if you hear Miriam, but when this concert hall was opened, Elizabeth Brown ran it, and Miriam was her assistant. Then Miriam took over, and that's when I got involved, and eventually we got jazz onto the books. And then she had assistant Jan, and then when Miriam left, Jan took over, and I helped Jan a lot with the jazz promotion. And then when Jan went, Kevin came in 2000, I think it was, and Kevin's pretty much been running it on his own since then. So I just want to tell you a little bit about the context of this. So I was classically trained as a pianist. My mother died when I was 4. She was a pianist, and my father wanted his 2 sons, my older brother and I, to play the piano in her memory. So my brother went up the road, to the end of the road, to Mrs. L.B. Jackson, who taught him piano, except she didn't really get very far with him. He didn't take to it, and he gave up. And then it was my turn. I started very young, and I was very good at first, playing lots of sort of quite advanced pieces. And then I, too, lost interest and never touched the piano. And then I came through, and to my dad's eternal credit, he kept me going. And eventually, I got interested again. I went through all the grades and the rest of it. But this is like not 80 years ago. It feels like 200 years ago, because in those days, there was very little jazz on anything. But there was one program called Family Favorites, and they played this tune. I happened to be in the kitchen, it was on. It was a Hampton Hawes trio playing Gypsy in My Soul. And when I heard it, I just knew it was my music. I went into the front room where my mother's piano was, and I tried and recreate the sounds. Didn't get very far, so I went to my youth club, John Bosco Catholic Youth Club in Wembley, and said, does anyone have a jazz record? And someone said to me, yes, I do. It's an EP. So I took it home, I wound up my gramophone, I put it on, and it stuck a groove all down one side of it, because it was a 78 RPM. I probably don't even know what I'm talking about, but it didn't take LPs. So I saved up for my dance set player, and I've played one side of that. And I used to sound a bit like Brubeck, which I'm not very keen on Brubeck now. He's a bit bombastic for me. But then I went again, and someone lent me an Errol Garner album, and that was it. I was off them, because Errol Garner plays 4 to the bar in his left hand. He sounds like this. So I'm playing all my 7ths in root position, you pianists. All the white notes, it's easy. I can make it all up as I go along. But the point was, I had a rhythm section, but I wanted to be like Hampton Hawes. So I wanted bass and drums. So I bought myself a bass, taught myself to play bass, taught my best friend, Jerry O'Regan, to play bass. I used to write out all his lines for him. Then I helped another friend whose name was, would you believe, Dave Drum. He played drums. The second drummer I ever worked with was called Bob Wackett. Can you imagine that? Unbelievable. Anyway, Dave Drum, and it's unbelievable. We were school kids, and we were really keen. We used to play at the school after the school ended, and then we'd go and do gigs anywhere that had a steam piano. This was before keyboard was invented. And we'd take double bass and a kit of drums, the 3 of us, on a bus and go to the gig or the party or wherever it was. And even more amazing, it blows my mind when I think about it, with some school friends, we opened a jazz club in North London, the Bushy Modern Jazz Club in Bushy, near Watford, I think it is. And we played with the stars of the day. The first gig was with Bert Courtley, top London trumpet player at the time, Don Rendell, Alan Wakeman. I mean, the list is endless. And even sometimes we put on groups like Tubby Hayes Quintet. So that's how I started. In fact, I was so involved with it when I went up to Oxford University to read mathematics. I went there 2 weeks late because I was still busy with the jazz club. To find that I couldn't get any digs in Oxford, I ended up getting digs in the next county, and I had to cycle in the bike. Anyway, what else do I want to tell you? I mean, while I went up to Oxford, I played with the who became Eric Stubbs trio, and he auditioned me. He'd won a trumpet scholarship to Juilliard in the States, but he hated his father, so he left the States. He came here. He wanted to form a group. He auditioned me. I used to sound a bit like Oscar Peterson in those days. He didn't like Oscar Peterson. He was an earlier pianist. And he said, "Do you play anything else?" I said, "Well, a little bit of bass, a little bit of drums, and I've just bought a flute." So he formed the Eric Gutt Trio, later to become the Eric Stubbs Trio. And I played flute and drums. Would you believe flute and drums? Not the easiest thing to do. But he encouraged me to write music, and I wrote music. And that was it for me. And then after Oxford, I went to London University, did an MSc and a PhD, and I taught there for a couple of years. And it's then I heard the music of Bill Evans. When I first heard Bill Evans, it just blew my mind away. I knew in my mind how I wanted to sound. I wanted to sound like he did, and I didn't think I ever would. So I just gave up playing in public, and even gave up playing. I used to just play his music, and I didn't even do that. And then when eventually someone forced me out into the open again, when I played, I discovered I sounded like Bill Evans. I couldn't believe it, but I'd listened to nothing else for 6 years. I can't play like him now, but I did then. And then I went to the Guildhall, under the Solent Suite, where once a month Tim Colwell ran a Sunday jazz session. And I said to him, "Can I play?" He said, "What do you play?" I said, "Piano." He said, "Yeah, what style?" I said, "A bit like Bill Evans." He said, "Yeah, Bill Evans, sure." So he put me on first before people had arrived with an unknown drummer, unknown bass player, heard what I sounded like. On the spot, it's very rotten of him, really. He sacked his pianist and put me in. And that was the start of my career. Those of you who are old enough remember Tim Colwell was it in the South. He was Mr. Music. And we did gigs, we did radio, we did tours. We went to the prestigious Dunkirk Jazz Festival, the best one there was in those days. First year we came second, I was voted top soloist. Second year we won it, I was voted top soloist. Third year we went and I went with my trio, we won it, I was voted top soloist, and we appeared on the final. It's a huge auditorium, 1,000 people, on the same bill as the Count Basie Orchestra. So I met Count Basie. He's actually a very nice person. Anyway, I won't trace it anymore from there, other than to say that I really eventually got involved with jazz, and especially I started off with the Southampton Jazz Society, it was now the Southampton Jazz Club, and thank you, Ewan and Kirk, for supporting this concert. And then I ran the Southampton Musicians Cooperative, the sort of avant-garde end of the spectrum. My big band, SMC Big Band, I ran for 10 years, and we were on local television before we went on an 11-day tour with the European Quartet. And then I got involved in Southampton Jazz Promotions with some friends. I think Tony and Mary might be here, and Jeff, sadly missed, is no longer with us. And we put on the big concerts. We really did put on big concerts. We had money from the city at first, and then we got money from other sources, and we put on the international stars of the day. Even the Brecker Brothers was one of the groups we put on. And then I ended up being involved here, especially with Miriam and Jan. And I was involved on and off for 15 years. And I used to do front of house, where I'd invite everybody in, and then back of house, where I would try and get the musicians. And one of the hardest things was getting some of them to go out to do an encore at the end. They didn't really want to do it. Anyway, I've spoken enough about that, other than to say SJP, Southampton Jazz Promotions, ran 11 festivals, jazz festivals. Many of them were centered in here. And in that time, I tried to promote the career of two people. My friend Andy Shepherd, who went on to international stardom, and he played at my 60th birthday concert here, and the wonderful John Taylor. John Taylor, wonderful pianist, I think our most important jazz musician that Britain has ever produced. And not only did I put him in on different occasions with different formations, I persuaded him to do a solo concert. He did a solo concert. He was really nervous about it, but he played beautifully. And he was wonderful. And I put him on 6 times altogether in solo form, including my 60th birthday concert. He asked not for it to be recorded, we have mics on here because he had a contract with a record player, but someone recorded it from the auditorium. It's a very good recording. So if someone's nice to me afterwards, I might let you have a bootleg copy of John Taylor playing. So John Taylor, wonderful pianist, wonderful composer, and he's written some wonderful music, including this next piece, which is going to be played by my wonderful eldest son. Would you welcome Professor Mark Dinverno? Mark's going to play Ambleside by John Taylor.
I'm going to dedicate this to Melly.
everyone assumes that I taught Mark jazz piano. I don't suppose Mark and I have talked about jazz piano for more than an hour or two. I mean, we played together, but he was taught by the great, oh gosh, I've forgotten. Who taught you, Mark? Monty Warlock. Monty had 2 pianos in his room. He was really difficult to learn. He would play all his stuff, and he'd say to the student, right, now you play it. So Mark learned that way, and then he had to learn a long time how to get rid of the Montyisms in his playing, much though he admired Monty. Anyway, Mark and I are going to play a tune now. James and Charlotte still here? Oh, brilliant. So I've got my 4 children and their partners, and 6 of my 9 grandchildren are here, including Charlotte, 7, and James, 9. And Charlotte and James, I want you to listen to this piece because it's written for your mummy. And it's written for your mummy when she was a little girl, the same age as Charlotte was. And she used to sort of buzz about all the time. We called her Escaping Baby because when you put her down, her legs would go like that and she'd disappear off into the distance. Anyway, I've written this thing. It's called Beth's Way. And there's a bit in it that goes... And we play it, Mark and I, sometimes at family gatherings, and everyone goes, Beth's Way. So please don't today, family, because it's Beth's Way. This is where you leave the stage, Mark. There will be more of him. I retired in 2006 from the maths department, which I had come here as a temporary job, and I stayed 36 years. I was mostly involved in teaching, but I was the one person only doing research on general relativity, Einstein, black holes, and all that sort of stuff. But I stuck at it, and bit by bit, I built up the group, and now the group is the largest relativity university group, I think, in Europe. And yeah. And last year I wrote the second edition of my book with my good colleague, Professor James Vickers. Actually, he wrote most of it. It was originally an undergraduate text. It's now a graduate as well. It's got 465 pages, and it's or 95 pages or something. It's really worth reading if you. So I retired in 2006, and in 2007, my wife and I, my wonderful wife, who's been so supportive to me in all the things I've done in my life, I owe her so much. But I set up a recording studio. We bought a house that had a thing for horses in, and I turned it into a recording studio. My friend opposite was a builder. He did a wonderful job. And then another friend who I hope is here, Ian in Houston, helped me kit it out with gear. And so when it was set up, I got in a lovely Yamaha grand piano, and my son Mark said, "What should we do?" I said, "Well, let's do a recording. We'll play the same tunes, and then we'll bring out the best of them." And we did, and that recording exists. But we wanted a rhythm section like the original trio, whose name's gone out of my head and mine. So I asked around, and they said, "Oh, the best player in the area is called Ben Taylor, and he lives in Lyne Regis. And then the best drummer is Lee Miller. He lives near Dorchester." So we brought them in, and we did our recording. And we got on really well with them. They're wonderful musicians. They're still wonderful musicians today, which is why 15, 16 years later, the Raid Inverno trio consists of Ben Taylor bass and Lee Miller drums. I know I'm doing a lot of talking. Just a last little thing about it, because people always assume you have one hat. But in fact, Ben has two, because he's a luthier, which means he does up old instruments. I mean, very valuable instruments. He trained as an artist when he was young. He's got a wonderful sense of colour, so he's in big demand. So much that doesn't do so much jazz these days, but he's still a wonderful player. And Lee Miller, he's got so many hats I don't really know which to tell you about, but he's an established composer, award-winning composer. He writes for films and computer games and library music at the moment. And he's also an author. He's just published his first novel. I'd say it was a crime caper comedy. Is that right? Yeah. And he's on his second novel now. And when he grows up, he wants to be a bass player, because he plays all sorts of different instruments, but he also plays bass, electric bass, so he's not in competition with Ben. And Lee and I have a few gigs together with him on electric bass. He's the Jaco Pastorius of the UK. Anyway, just finally, if you want to hear Mark's stuff, you can go to Spotify and get some of. If you want to hear any of my stuff, there are some CDs for sale outside. They were originally £20, but today they've been reduced to £5. Yeah, so if you go to Spotify, there is one track that I've managed to get up on Spotify, and it's the three of us playing The Touch of Your Lips, which we're going to play now, if I can find the music. I can't do anything without music. There it is. We had a recording session. We made an album called 3 and 4, which is on sale outside. And we had some right tricky stuff we wanted to play. But to get us settled, I switched on all the mics and made sure that we could be heard. And I said, let's just play something to get comfortable. And we played The Touch of Your Lips. And I absolutely love it. I can really say that Hampton Hawes, I'm a jazz pianist now, just for that one tune. So if you go to Spotify, The Touch of Your Lips, Raid Inverno, it will sound a little bit like this. Ben Taylor, Lee Miller. I run a quintet. One of the reasons I ring the quintet is because it's so hard for us to get gigs. Although, Lee, did you say we might have one in Bournemouth in a few weeks' time? Yeah. Anyway, I extended it to a quintet so that we could get more gigs. And Quintessential Groove you'll hear in the second set. My son ran a quintet as well, a very prestigious one, and it featured Ed Jones on tenor saxophone, and we're going to be joined now by both Mark and Ed Jones. Would you welcome Ed Jones, ladies and gentlemen?
Hello, it's great to be here playing with Ed. I played with Ed when I first came to London. I was about 21 or 22, and I've just followed Ed as a fan all my life. He had an incredible quartet that played at the Vortex regularly. We're just talking about it on the train coming down. And I played with Ed a little bit over the years. Whenever I can get a gig, Ed would be my first port of call. And we've got a fantastic album that's called Counting It, which you can buy for £5 outside. And Ed does play an absolute storm on that, I have to say. And all of the songs are written by myself and a very good friend of mine from Paris called Francois Pachet. And this is one of the songs from that album, and it's called Why Not? Thanks, Steve. Ben.
Why not? When John Taylor played his 6 solo concerts for me, every time he played this wonderful tune by Kenny Wheeler, everybody's song but my own, and we're going to play it now. For our final tune this set, we're going to play a wonderful tune by Dave Brubeck. I introduced jazz studies in the music department, even though I was a mathematician, and I taught there for 3 years, and they then hired a American, Jose Bowen, who came and he formed Jazzmatics, which was doing a concert here. And one weekend, he put a wonderful weekend with Dave Brubeck and his 3 sons, all musicians, and we sang one of Dave Brubeck's work. So I have the honor of having sung with Dave Brubeck, although with lots of other people as well. And in it, we had a lunchtime concert, and I asked him a question. He actually signed my thing after. I said, everyone loves In Your Own Sweet Way. All the great pianists and not so great pianists have played it. How did it come about? He said, well, I was doing a duo with Paul Desmond. We were playing in the club. And one interval, Paul said to me, I'm fed up with just playing standards. Couldn't you write something? He said there was a piano in the room. He sat and he wrote 2 tunes, one of which was In Your Own Sweet Way. I never asked him what the other tune was. Anyway, not only do I have my original record, the signature by Dave Brubeck, but I also have the honor of playing with Ed In Your Own Sweet Way. And then it will be interval. Ed Jones. Ben Taylor. Lee Miller. Ray Inverno. Let's have some cake. Let's have some cake. Let's have some cake. Oh, wow. It's loud. Here we go. Okay? Thank you very much. There's a tune of mine called Bank Holiday Blues. I see Don Richards was here. I think it was Don Richards, the trumpet player who led the section in the Tim Colwell's Jazz Friends Sextet. And I think Don might have been there because when I moved to Southampton, a rehearsal with, after a few years, with all the musicians I knew. And just before they came, I wrote this blues, Bank Holiday Blues, and it stuck with me, even though I went wrong in the last chorus. So sorry about that, guys. I try not to be wrong after. My son is a chip off the old block, really, eldest son anyway, Mark, because he's an academic like me, a professor of computing and music at Goldsmiths College, University of London, and a jazz pianist. And for a while, he was at University College London doing a PhD, and he ran a big band, the UCL Big Band. And as you know, my last concert, I ran a big band for 10 years, the SMC Big Band. Anyway, they got a tour of Czechoslovakia, and he said, would I write a suite for them? And I said, okay. So I wrote this thing called the Czechoslovakia Suite, and one of the pieces is called Praguesville. And I wrote it having in mind the fact that the band had a tuba, and so I wrote what's called a false ending. So it seemed to come to an end, don't clap there, and the tuba goes, but I haven't got a tuba, but I have got Ben, so Ben's going to play the role of the tubas. So, no, with his instrument, not with his voice. And so when we get there, don't clap too soon. But you can clap the wonderful trumpet player, Andy Haig, because he is a talent. Not only is he a fantastic trumpeter, but he's a wonderful drummer as well, and he's busy on both angles. And he runs the jazz club in Bristol, the Bebop Club, which is, I think, the longest-running jazz club, one of the ones in the country. We actually played there last Thursday, and very, very grateful for the things he does. And I know he plays it also. He's got his own band, and he plays in other bands. He also plays in the it's gone out of my head. What's the name of the band that played at Ronnie Scott's last year? Mike Westbrook Band. So he's played at Ronnie Scott's recently. I've only ever been a punter there. Anyway, this is going to feature him, and it's the tune that I wrote for UCL Big Band. It's called Praguesville. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2. Andy Haig. So now we're going to feature our other frontline soloist, Terry Quinney, who's a Canadian. He was big in Canada, appeared on television and festivals and stuff like that. And then he came to this country. So don't know when he's going to go back because the opportunities for jazz are few and far between. But he is a busy musician playing with shows and various things. So it's going to feature him. Someone said to me once, what's your favorite piece of jazz? And I had an answer. It's this tune. It's called Everything That Lives Laments by the wonderful Keith Jarrett. It's not really a tune so much as a suite. It starts off with a kind of thing out of tempo, nice sort of fanfare type thing from Terry. Then there's an open bass solo. And then I get to play the tune. I'll have a short solo because of the time. I know some people have got to go soon because they've got a life to get back to. And then we'll have a solo from Terry who will take us out. I just want to tell the musicians here, why is it so great? It's because it's 6 bars. First 2 bars are just F minor. And when you get to the 7th and 8th, you think, we're at the end of the tune because everything's multiples of 4 in jazz. But it isn't. It's the beginning of the next thing. And so it has this wonderful momentum. And as a soloist, it's really hard to stop. And I'm not going to allow Andy Haig to start as a soloist because in this one, I'd like him to play tambourine. Although he's a wonderful drummer, he doesn't like this bit. But anyway, here it is, the amazing Everything That Lives Laments by Keith Jarrett. Terry Quinney. Terry Quinney. Keith Jarrett's probably my favourite jazz pianist of all time, although Bill Evans comes a close, well, he was earlier. Sadly, he had a stroke a year or so back, and he's not playing anymore. But he's probably recorded more than any other artist. And one of the things he's recorded is a piece from my favourite show, by a long way, is West Side Story. I think it's absolutely wonderful, Leonard Bernstein's writing. And there's a piece in it which I love when the hero dies. It's called Somewhere. It's that lovely, the words are lovely about, we'll meet again somewhere. And Mark and I have a colleague we know called Andrew Van Vlier. He's an American pianist and works at university. And he's a fantastic transcriber. So he can take a piece and write it down. And I asked him, would he transcribe just the tune of Keith Jarrett playing Somewhere? From an album called Somewhere Anywhere, I think. And he's done it. And I've said to Mark, please, Mark, will you learn it and play it at my funeral? And so he's not going to play it tonight. I'm going to play it. I'm still here. It's difficult to play because, first of all, Jarrett's a genius. Just every note he plays is sort of like special. And I'm not like that. Wonderful if I could know what his secret was. But one of the things I'm going to try and do is to read the music, and I'm a hopeless reader, so bear with me. You'll see me concentrating like crazy. We're going to do it incredibly slowly for me. Actually, it's incredibly slowly on the album too. So here is Andrew Van Vlier's transcription of Keith Jarrett's playing of Leonard Bernstein's Somewhere. I formed this group because I wanted to do something that didn't just involve the trio, because we found it very hard to get gigs, and with the front line, we managed to get more. But originally, I put it together to play the music of Joshua Redman. I mean, my friend Ian Houston is here today, and he started transcribing some of the Joshua Redman tunes, and I continued on and then extended it into this group. So we got a number of Joshua Redman tunes in our repertoire, but this one is a favorite of ours because we usually use it as a closer on a gig. It's not quite a closer yet, but it's the last time you'll hear us as a quintet, because we're going to be joined by our guests in a minute. And it's a Joshua Redman tune called Cat Battles. One, two, three. Cat battles. Would you welcome back our two guests, Mark Divano and Ed Jones? How many people here have read my blog on the Turner Sims Concert Hall blog? Gosh, as few as that. Well, if you want to read all about the history of jazz in this concert hall, then I've written 10 little essays, maybe not so small, which is on the Turner Sims website under blogs. And in it you will see that I've done 20 lunchtime concerts in here and 13 major concerts. And I did one big one for my 60th, and I had, as I told you, John Taylor and Andy Shepherd. And I wrote this tune for Andy Shepherd, and I called it Bossa Carnival. And everyone was supposed to sing Bossa Carnival. I played it with this group, and they said, it isn't a bossa, it's a calypso. So you're in this one, you're going to have to sing Calypso Carnival, right? It's a lot harder to sing than Bossa Carnival. So it goes like this. Calypso Carnival. So it comes in early. Calypso Carnival. Can you try that? Calypso Carnival. I mean, you can sing it high if you want. Calypso Carnival, if you go up there. Okay, so let's just see if you can get it this time. Calypso Carnival. That's it. So you get to sing it 3 times at the beginning and 3 times at the end. Actually, you don't. You get to sing it 6 times at the beginning, because I forgot. Mark and I are going to do part of it on our own. So you ready, Mark?
Yep.
I can't see you, but I imagine you're there. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Calypso Carnival. Calypso Carnival. Yourself a clap. Well, we're coming to the end of our concert. I don't want to overstay our welcome. I was with Celia, who now runs the Southampton church choir, Catholic church choir in Bugle Street. It's a super choir, which I started, and I said to her, do you remember the time we had a concert with some jazz musicians in here, and we were still singing at 11:30? And people liked it, but they were saying, thanks very much, very nice, goodbye. And I tend to overdo things a bit, but all right, a lot. So we're going to play a tune now by Mark and his colleague Francois Pachet. I really like this tune. It's going to feature Mark and Ed, and I think let's do a little bit, just Mark and I, so if you can sort of drop out, if it seems appropriate, that would be good. But we'll have Ed do the first solo. In fact, let them start. Song bouncy, count it in, Ed.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Andy Haig on the trumpet, ladies and gentlemen. Terry Quinney on saxophone. Lee Miller at the drums. Ben Taylor at the bass. our special guest, Mark D'Inverno, piano. And even more special guests, Ed Jones, tenor saxophone. That's it. Okay, yeah, we're going to play one more tune. Yeah, come in, please, come in. Yeah. So you'll know if you read my blog that I was involved in this concert hall for about 15 years. And I used to do front of house when people would come in and back of house. And one of my jobs was to get the groups to do an encore. And it was really difficult with some. They said, we're booked for 40 minutes each. What do you mean? And but thank you for those people who shouted encore. I will settle up with you at the end as agreed. So we genuinely are going to play our last piece. Don't ask us for anything else because we don't know anything else. I do, as I tried to point out, I do sort of like more commercial gigs, I suppose, these days. And that's why I played Best Me Mucho, because I play it a lot, because people know it. And this last one we play, you're going to know. And at the end, it's always so boring. They say, oh, that's lovely, that tune. What was it? And I don't know the answer, except that they've heard it as Film 92, Film 93, Film 94, Film 95. Actually, if you want to know what its real title is, I play it a lot at weddings, and it's called I Wish I Knew How It Felt to Be Free. Terry Quinney. Andy Haig. special guest, Ed Jones. Me. On the bass, Ben Taylor. On the drums, Lee Miller. No, I'm going to do a little announcement, Ed. Put your saxophone away, because I just want to say thank you so much to all the people that's made my 80th birthday really happy. I can die in peace now. Although I did say to Kevin, could I do a 100th birthday here? And he said he wasn't sure. So thank you. It's been a lovely time, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I've certainly enjoyed it. Thanks, guys, for playing with me. That's it.
Fantastic.